Hello, Bill's back. We're on the Molly walk. This is not my time, it's hers. How to photograph shorebirds on a busy beach. As you can tell, we're not on a busy beach anymore. Been back for about 3 weeks, getting ready for Thanksgiving, and it's been pretty busy, to say the least. So going to try to get some things covered today, right before the weekend. Maybe the video turned out right after Thanksgiving weekend. There's a lot of things that go into photographing birds, period. On the beach, it can be a really, really great place. But the problem is, if you have a tourist season, especially where we were, there were quite a few people still there, even though it was after school. And it's pretty hard to get good, clean shots with very clear backgrounds. And it was also a little bit chilly, so you didn't want to get too far in the water too quickly in the morning. We usually did our walks in the morning. So she loves leaves. That's her thing. Good clean backgrounds. It's really one of the bigger things that most people try for. One of the guys I follow on YouTube, Jan Wegener here in Australia. Just a masterful bird photographer. Probably one of the best that I've seen. He has a good friend, Glenn Bartley, and they do about a monthly magazine whenever they can. Glenn's often in South America. But they have this, they have the thought that the bird, the subject, needs to have as clean a background as possible. And they include just a little bit of the environment. And that is fantastic. They usually, the bird is usually very richly colored, and then the background is almost always much lighter. Definitely very blurry. It's so cold, I can't think. When you're on the beach, it's really hard to, slow down, girl. When we're on the beach, it's really hard to not get people or masses of footprints in your photos. So you end up having to be a little bit higher and shoot down on birds a little bit more. And you're going to have a little bit more of the environment in there. The waves, the slope of the beach, and maybe even the water itself out to the Gulf. This one had to take a break. I like to put in a lot of background, a lot of the environment, but I noticed that my photos are getting pretty busy, sometimes a little bit too busy, and really hard to discern, really hard to figure out what's really going on in the photo. There's too many lines that intersect the bird, too many lines that intersect the head, distractions, bright spots, dark spots, and things like that. So I guess the trick is trying to isolate the bird well enough that you have a good subject. This is a picture of a great blue heron, and it's cropped quite a bit. But let's take a look at what is going on composition-wise, and you'll see why I cropped where I did. Right off the bat, the simplest thing, composition rules. Right here, his eye is on a third here, but his primary portion of his body is here on a third, and the heavy weight of the visual difference is up here in the third also. This has the typical S-curve that you want, but it also has something really interesting that I like, and this is why I picked this out of quite a few different photos. Is this shape right here, this part, is mimicked to a point by this right here. Coming back here. So we have basically an ellipse. And there's nothing really greatly distracting in here too much. I thought about cloning out some of these bubbles right here, and I just try not to do that too much. This photo, though, was taken at 100 millimeters of my EF-100-400, and I was standing up completely. And what I was trying to do is bring in several elements, which I did in other photos further on, of what was going on in and around Fred here. This is the original. If you notice, it was taken portrait with a lot of distractions. I could have zoomed in quite a bit and narrowed them down, maybe taken a step to the right. But the water was moving, people were basically walking right here beside me while I was shooting. There was a lot going on. And also I'm trying to not get too far to the right because I might drag in some of these footprints up in this area. But what I wanted to do was I wanted Fred and I wanted these sandpipers back here to be in the photo also. These guys didn't make it into this crop, but they made it into some others. The hard part was isolating this before he took about 2 more steps closer to the water where I could back up, or actually I cropped a little further out. I cropped basically right about like that. Yeah, pretty close. Definitely had to get rid of these footprints up in this area. What I like about this shot is that he's got a good grip on that fish. It came out really nice and sharp with almost no distractions around the bird itself. Like I said, I really thought about pulling these out, but I didn't. I like this feet position. I kind of wish that his toe was sticking a little bit further out, but that's okay. It's not a deal breaker, and it's not a portfolio shot. It's just a really nice picture of a blue heron. I was standing completely up. His head was probably maybe waist high at best. A few shots coming up, I was actually kneeling down in the water in the edge of the waves right here, and then right at the shore break, there's like about an 8-inch drop off, and I was actually kneeling down in there for a few things too, and we'll get to those. I'm not sure I like this. There's a lot of distraction around his head and around his body. So we're getting close to an actual better composition. This is pretty busy. I really liked how this was coming together, and I wish it would have continued this way and had some smoother water, but maybe I'll just crop it pretty good. Oop. And then we have a really good close-up, kind of a portrait. Getting that isolation with focus in the background blurred out just a little bit better. One of the more fun shots I have is this one right here. But this was probably the best toss and catch that he had going on. And the background is really clean. It's not very out of focus, not very much out of focus, like some would like to see it, but it's such a clean background I don't think is necessary. It doesn't take away from what's going on. Also, I like this edge right here. It kind of brings you into focusing on what's happening right here. This is the focus point. I'm not sure. I might recrop this. This is at the intersection of 2/3. It's a little pushed. I might expand this out to the right just a little bit. Let's take a look. Oh, I can't. Might need to draw it in this way. Make it feel a little bit more open. I don't think that's much of a difference. Anyway, this is the best catch that he had. And I'd like to say something about this particular bird. I believe he's pretty young. He may not be, because he played with that fish for 40 minutes. And I probably have 8 or 9 decent photos of him playing catch with it. There's another one that's just, I didn't process. A lot of these I processed, but I didn't really like too much. This is, yeah, see, the eye's in focus, and the fish is angled a little bit too far, and it's pushing out. That's a problem with you have a 400 millimeter zoom on a bird that's like 25 feet away, is that your depth of focus, your depth of field is really shallow. Which brings me back to this guy right here. I just like how this looks. The blues, his gray, the whiteness of the beach just starting to go through. The way this building's reflecting a little bit and brightening up the background somewhat naturally. It just seems to fall together pretty well for me. I also took probably hundreds of these little guys right here. And they were rather easy to shoot because you could walk within 5 feet of them and they wouldn't move. They just go about their business and ignore you. They just didn't want to get stepped on. And so they run out of the way at the very last minute. But looking here, you know, I'm probably kneeling down. No, I'm standing up. It's 400 millimeter. Probably about 25 feet away, 30 feet away. There's no way at all standing up like this to get this out of focus around him or behind him or in front of him doing that. And if I would have kneeled down or laid down right in the beach break, there would have been 2 or 3 families and a whole bunch of little kids running up and down the beach about 30, 40 feet behind here. So I really couldn't get the distance that I wanted back behind him. I have so many of these are rather boring. I do have one that's, I'll have to find it. Here we go. He's caught himself a sandworm, and this is what they're eating a lot of. These little, tiny little worms that live in the sand, and I don't know how they spot them. I just don't know. I don't know how they come up with catching them. I'm not sure I like this crop. This is not a portfolio type image. What he had done is, if you can look right through here, follow the cursor, he had ran into the receding wave and turned around and stuck his beak in right there and pulled it up. Now, I really like these. There's a series of them. Actually, there were probably about 200, and I got it down to, I think, 8 images. And I'm not sure which one I like the most, but there's just so many. The footprints and the busy background just kind of take away from it for me. As far as the cute value, probably this one or this one. I think I'm going to actually print that one. We have a frame that we switch out pictures in 8x10s, and we have one for every season and a few extra, and I might throw that in the mix. The easy part when shooting shorebirds at the beach, at a busy beach, is if they're flying. These are the local bombers. They're looking for a place to start fishing. They're just flying up and down the beach really slow. I kind of like this. You see, I'm leaving a little bit of space here to show that they're up, but not throwing them so far up that it makes an odd space for the 3. I isolated this one, but there's plenty of room for him to fly forward. But, you know, this is a typical thing. You have blue sky, no background, no interference. It's really simple to do. And almost all of these birds are so acclimated to people that you can get within 30 or 50 feet of them, and you don't need 400 millimeters to do it, to set up a shot. You don't need anything spectacular going on. You just have to figure out a way to isolate them from all the other things going on the beach. The footprints, the people walking up and down, the ATVs carrying umbrellas, just stuff. And that's really basically it. I did get a couple osprey photos. And well, this one I like a lot. He's looking, he's probably 100 feet away and he's looking straight down into the water. This is a pretty good crop. He's looking straight down into the water and it came out pretty sharp. I like it. It's something, the detail is just great. But he's concentrating on what he's seeing down below. This, it's also sharp, shows his underwing. It's really nice. I held on to it, but I won't probably do anything at all with it. And then the last one here, I stood up and he looked straight at me, but he was probably a couple 100 feet away at this point. He's a little bit backlit, but not too much. And the bright white beach of Northwest Florida was reflecting off him so well that it didn't have to really bring the shadows up too much. But that's about as good as it gets. And since he was flying towards me, sweeping to my left, I left the motion area, the open area to the left, so he could move into it or have the illusion of moving into it. I'm going to say something about cropping, because you see that I really cropped this quite a bit. This is a 32 megapixel file, and the ending crop was really 9.5 megapixels. And people say you have to have these massive, 30, 50, 100 megapixel cameras to really be able to crop in. And I find that my XTI, Canon XTI, took some really great 16 by 20 pictures, and it was a 10 megapixel camera. So this being 9, if you take this, I'm going to go up to a 100% crop on this screen. You can do a 16 by 20 of this in the blink of an eye at a 9 megapixel crop. It can be done, not a problem at all. If you have a 20 or 30 megapixel camera, don't be afraid to crop in a little bit to really isolate things. If you can do it by shooting portrait or landscape, that's great. But if you have to crop, don't be afraid to, because most people, these pictures don't ever make it anywhere other than online. And quite a few people only look at these on their phone. Don't be afraid to step back, shoot a little bit more so you have room to crop. Stand up a little, kneel down, or if you have the ability to get into this cold water, kneel down into the cold water and use this as the backdrop right here. I hope you got some information out of this. Shoot wider, move around, shoot down a little bit, and crop if it makes sense. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe.